Welcome into another edition of the Hops and Spirits Kentucky podcast. Last week we talked with Mark Wombles, owner chef at Heirloom in Midway and Distilled on Jefferson and Lexington. It was a fun chat, and we got another great one for you this week. And like we did last week, we're going to do news and notes, and we'll be filling you in on this part with releases, special releases, news about restaurants, events, all sorts of things. And first up, it's going to be a little Lexington heavy this week, but don't worry, we'll go around the state as best we can. A big one this weekend, Crave Food and Music Festival returns Saturday and Sunday, July 30th and 31st at the Bluegrass Fairgrounds at Masterson Station Park in Lexington. That's off Leestown Road. There will be 40-plus food trucks, restaurants showcasing their food, beer. There'll also be beer and cocktails, music, and so much more. Tickets are required. That's an event my wife and I, our family, look forward to every year. It's a lot of fun. You get to try out a whole lot of different food, so come hungry. Speaking of being hungry, Boomtown Biscuits and Whiskey is now just in Union, Kentucky, up in northern Kentucky, after closing its Pendleton location in Cincinnati. The restaurant is home to Chef Christian Gill, who has appeared on several Food Network shows recently, including Beat Bobby Flay and Guy's Grocery Games Summer Games. I've been there, and it is wonderful, and it's a cool combination of food and drinks. And last but not least, as we round out our news and notes for this week, the Whiskey Bear has come out of hibernation. That's right. Whiskey Bear opened last weekend with its sister business, Addie's Stone Fired Pizza. It's in the Belmont Center in Lexington. It previously was at the Summit and Fritz Farms at the barn there, along with several other restaurants, but that closed down a while back. You can get specialty whiskey cocktails, artisan-style pizza. Like I said, it was originally part of the barn at the Summit in Lexington. Up next is our Q&A with John King, the creator and founder of Drunkwood. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here for the Q&A on the Hops and Spirits Kentucky podcast, he's the creator, founder of Drunkwood. He's got many hobbies and I believe some talents as well. John King, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time to share about what you do. And before we get too deep into what Drunkwood is, as I lose my headphone here, what can you tell us a little bit about yourself? But like I said, don't go too deep because I've got many questions.
Oh, I was on a podcast and somebody asked that question. 45 minutes later, we went to the next one. So basically, I grew up in Central Illinois, small farming community, small town. I went to college, had to do something with the psychology degree because you can't do anything with it. And decided to come to the South and came to U of L for graduate school for school counseling. I got my school counseling degree. At the time, you couldn't be a school counselor in Kentucky without a teaching degree. So I had to leave. So I left for a year to head back to Central Illinois. And they changed that degree and I entered a PhD program at U of L. So came back in 2008. And then, worked at the university till 2016. Was in charge of middle school teacher education program, taught some courses as well. And then we'll get into some other things that I was doing there, but basically started Drunkwood full time in 2016. I actually started it in 2012 as a hobby. So I was working at U of L. Customers would I'd hand items out the window or meet them outside. And, but yeah, it's been full time since 2016 and haven't looked back yet since.
Well, it sounds like it's a cool story. And I'm curious though, clearly you can see some of what he can do behind him, I believe. I'm assuming that's one of your works behind you.
Yeah, that's so I live here in the Germantown area, Louisville, and we bought a house, which funny story is the day we closed on the house in 2016, I put my 2 weeks notice in right after I signed the paperwork because my mortgage guy was like, you can't quit your job until you get all this finalized. So I quit my job and took a risk of having Drunkwood be my full-time option. And there was a couple years where it's a little shaky, but it's proven itself. But yeah, basically that's when I moved in the house, it's the most flammable house in Louisville because it's just covered with all my woodwork. It's probably a 12-foot cedar outline of the United States, and we travel and do a lot of national park and hiking and backpacking stuff. So I just kind of pinpoint a lot of different photos and things along those lines. So yeah.
I was going to say, so you can see he's creative, folks. But my question is, have you always been creative?
Yeah. And, when I think about it, when I was younger, I was super into comic books. My dad had a huge comic book collection that he'd kill me if he knew. I sold a lot of it in college to pay for rent, beer money. So like I used to have all the old like early edition Spider-Man and X-Men. And so a lot of time I'd look at those photos and start drawing. And at one time, like huge into Calvin and Hobbes. Growing up, Calvin and Hobbes was a big, and I started rereading them as an adult because as a kid, I didn't figure out what the jokes were. So I was always into drawing and thought I was going to be an artist. Took my basketball coach in high school was an art teacher, so kind of figured out what I could and what I couldn't do. But then when it came for college, I didn't really want to go into the visual arts, and I was good, but I wasn't that good. It's just like in anything, you figure out where you stand. And when I went to college, I kind of stopped everything because it was too busy. And then when I got to graduate school, picked up some other new hobbies and kind of went away from it. It wasn't until, I hate to say I wasn't creative for like, I don't know, 8 to 10 years until some guy I knew in beer was like, hey man, do you want this bourbon barrel? We're done aging beer in it. And from that single bourbon barrel, kind of, I was in the backyard tooling around, and that's kind of what started everything up. And I still thankfully have that bourbon barrel top to this day. So I made a smoker out of the barrel, so I'd take it to U of L games and smoke meats and stuff. But yeah, so it's kind of been a roller coaster of creativity. So
well, and I'm guessing you don't get bourbon barrels as easily nowadays as you did then.
No, man. When I started in 2012, I friended a buddy of mine that owns a cooperage called Kelvin's Cooperage, and he would just say, "Come out, take whatever you wanted." Because to them, it wasn't when the surge happened. I mean, it was just taking up space. So for years, when I was just doing it as a hobby, I'd get a lot of free stuff from then. And then once the bourbon industry started picking up and more people started doing what I did, he's like, man, I'm going to have to charge you. And which was fine. But then, excuse me, I'm also having a beer on this. So, once I didn't have a problem buying barrels, but what I do now is I don't buy barrels anymore. I buy pallets of staves and then pallets of barrel heads. So then I don't have to deconstruct it. And I work from home, so I have a teeny tiny space. So barrel heads with all that excess air in the middle would just take up space. But once COVID hit, I will say in the last year, since everyone's stuck at home and decided to get into this type of work, prices have tripled. Like I used to pay less than $4 for a barrel head. Now they're going about $15-20. Most of that is because lasers got super cheap. So people started just buying those and doing monograms and things like that on them. So yeah, barrel heads, I always have connections, but it's getting a little trickier.
Well, you're going to have to put those to good use. Now, you mentioned you started, kind of doing Drunkwood in 2012. Was woodworking kind of just a stress reliever for you back then, or was it kind of something a little more, or it built into that?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it was a stress reliever. It was just kind of, it was a challenge. It was like, hey, let's see what I can do this. Because living in Kentucky, you'd see everything bourbon state related, but only a few people, and only a couple that I'm still close with are still doing it today. It was, wouldn't say stress. It was just something to do. Like I remember in college, I'd build a set of bags and kind of got a little bit of woodworking, and I worked construction in college. So I kind of had your basic skills, but it was kind of hey, let's screw it up and then learn why we screwed up and then try to get better. I mean, I still see things to Facebook, like some of the work from 2012 and 2013, and you're like, oh my God, like how far you've come. And then people will ask me all the time to still make some of those items, and I won't do it because I'm just like, listen, there's other people that do the kind of start out products. I was like, go give them your business. They're just starting out. So.
Well, and what pushed you to go full time in 2016 with Drunkwood and give it a go?
It was a combination of a few things. So I'd worked in the university for a while, And I love my boss, but she was very picky on when you could take vacation days and holiday days. And I went for a job and I didn't get it. And it was me and my best friend, my work wife, we're going for the same job. And I told her, I said, I want you to get this. And if you get it over me, I said, I'm gone. And, the thing is my business was building, but I knew, we'll talk about it, but I was also doing work in the beer industry. So I was kind of like, if I leave U of L, I know enough people, I can get a job in beer while I do this woodworking that's going to supplement it. So what I didn't add this part earlier, I never told my wife or my family I was quitting my job. So my parents didn't know for like 6 months. They just stopped seeing some photos, and God rest my soul, she's still alive. My wife was so awesome about it. She was just like, sure, you do it, as long as you can, do what you got to do. And the first 2 years were, they were a struggle. Like, the sales weren't where I wanted them to. And so I was applying for jobs. I mean, I applied for a ton of even different school counseling or going back into education jobs. And I wasn't hearing anything back from them. And I was just like, well, I guess this is, so I kind of figured out how social media and different outlets and different connections, how to do SEO stuff on Google. And things were going good. But once COVID hit, everything doubled. Like, it was just, everyone was stuck at home, nothing to do. They did a lot of, just like me, did a lot of home projects. So people were just like, it was crazy. People were buying. And at the time, my wife was laid off. So it was one of those times of like, yes, everything's great, but everything's not so great. And a lot of my friends who were doing similar businesses that were relying on shows, or like they had their items in brick and mortars, they were hurting. So like, for me, I had to keep my mouth shut because I felt bad about talking about my success. Whereas my friends and peers, were shutting down their businesses or, struggling to get by, if they had it as a full-time job. And there's a few of us that actually considered it a full-time job.
And with the name, how did you come up with the name? Was it a drunken night amongst beer, or how did that work?
I wish it was. Well, to go back to my wife being so awesome, well, she's my second wife and also my second Ashley. So I was married before, and her name was also Ashley. And at the time, while I was doing this, I had to create a Facebook page for it. And I came up with like 3 names. I was like, I can't remember the other 2. But the name Drunkwood was because when you cut the wood, you can smell the bourbon. And then when you visually look at the bourbon, the bourbon barrel stave, you can see the line of where the bourbon had went into and came out. And so of all the names, she thought Drunkwood was the stupidest name. And I was just like, that's it, Drunkwood. And, I've gotten giggles from it and other things. And I mean, it just kind of stuck, and it has been there ever since. And I think, and one thing I did too, is I did look up if there were any other companies named it. And there was a company in the UK that I think it did like driftwood sculptures. And there was like another motorcycle company. So it's totally cool. It's a totally unique name. So that's kind of where it came from.
I love it. I love it. So simple and but so fun and fitting. When you're coming up with ideas and so forth, whether it's stuff that you're going to continually have or might consider, how does that process work for you? I mean, are you sketching things out, or is someone coming to you with things, or how does that work?
Kind of both. So a lot of my items are custom orders. So I have items I make all the time because those are the most popular items. But then if someone comes to me or like has an idea, we kind of sit there over email or a phone call and hash it out. One thing is like when I started in 2012, I was looking on the internet for ideas. And because a lot of the times I only use bourbon barrel staves, but in California, a lot of people were doing things out of wine staves. So like in California was making at iron deck chairs. So I took that with bourbon barrels, kind of wrote the measurements myself through trial and error, kind of created at iron deck chairs. And, I do things like pub tables and coat hangers and just simple things, just trying to see making something, throwing it up against the wall to see what would stick. And over time, like I started doing Kentucky outlines and then adding Kentucky outlines with shelves to display bourbon bottles, which is, probably one of my number one pieces, and also probably one of the most ripped off pieces that I get. And that's a part of it, is like, just like me looking at other people's things for ideas, you're going to find other makers who will do the same things. And so, in the beginning, I used to get really frustrated about it, but then I got to realize, I was like, there's, you can't, pattern, not pattern, you can't say the state of Kentucky is yours. Now, how you do certain things to it, yes. But, I just learned to get over it, because it's, you can fight your fight, but at the end of the day, everyone rips off everyone. But I try to be as unique as possible. So like, if all the time I get people that send me photos of other people's work, and it's like, hey, can you make this? Can you make it cheaper? And probably a quarter of the time I know who made it. So, what I'll do is I'll screenshot, like, for example, you had Thomas Woodworking on, and I'm good friends with them, and vice versa. They have people send me my stuff and people send them their stuff, and we just laugh. We're like, we know these people. And I always encourage people, if you're going to screenshot someone else's work, just buy it from them. Because if you ask me to make it cheaper, I'm not going to do it. And that's patience, and patience with customers is, man, if you follow me on my regular Facebook page, I put it all out there. I could screenshot people's stuff, because if you're going to be like that, I don't care. I used to take really offense to it, and then I just realized that you can't please everyone. That the customer is always right is the deadest thing I've ever heard in my life.
You just got to listen to the customer, and then let them talk, and then let them go.
And I'm pretty good at, via email or phone conversations, to know, do I want to work with this person? Is this person going to be a pain? And I can figure that out within the first couple exchanges. And then what I do is I either refer them to someone else, or just say, hey, I can't help you. Go on Etsy. You may be able to find it in regards. So it's the ability to say no is a wonderful thing. And that's the best part about being your own boss, is saying no.
I was going to say, you don't have anyone else to answer to except yourself. Now, you've created a ton of cool items. You can see them on the Drunkwood social media pages. Is there one that stands out to you that was more fun or more difficult or a pain in the butt, or is there some that stick out more than others?
Man, I used to make huge farmhouse tables of like Jim Beam Rickwood, which was awesome, because the Rickwood had, like, when you have a barrel, they have rivets with K and Y or MO where it was made. And a lot of the old wood, the barrels would roll on it. So a lot of that wood would have KO or MO like on it. Those were fun. I got asked to do a piece for Elton John. He was coming to town. So I took, now granted, he doesn't drink anymore, which was kind of weird, but I made him a box for all these letters that fans from here wrote to him, and it was all made out of bourbon barrel pieces. And like, they gave it to him because it was in his like farewell tour. Well, that farewell tour was 4 years ago, and he's still touring. So, I mean, that was kind of cool. But there's some pieces I really, I really never know until a customer will like send me a message back like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, for example, I did this huge mixed wood cutout of a Saint Bernard, and took a bourbon barrel, and the dog's name was Whiskey. And I sent it all, like, I was very cautious about sending it all the way to Oregon because it costs a lot of money, and I sent it to them, and they absolutely fell in love with it. And like probably 3 months ago, I got an email, and the customer emailed me and said, hey, John, just wanted to let you know that we really love the piece. And they actually went out of their way to email me to let me know that dog had just passed away. And they had sent me a photo with the dog sitting under the piece that I made in their hallway. So that's the kind of stuff to where, like, for every 10 not nice, caring customers, it's that one message you get that totally makes your day. So
no, that's an awesome story, and that shows what art can do for folks. And you're a beer lover too, as we can see, as you enjoy a drink. What's that about? I mean, you're working with bourbon barrels and wine barrels and wood.
So that's kind of how it started. So I started getting into beer in like 2010, just like dabbling like into the craft beer that we had available here in Kentucky. And I started a beer blog, Kentucky Brew Review, at the time when blogs were cool. And so I'd basically get a beer, read a review, and I also started homebrewing. So I put in recipes. And I befriended a guy named Dave Pierce, who was brewing at New Albanian Brewing Company at the time, and was like one of the OGs of Louisville beer, and just sent him a couple emails like, hey, here's my recipe. Can you tweak it? And so he and I got to email back and forth. And he was just like, hey, come by the brew house and come check it out. So we quickly became friends. And that's where I got my first bourbon barrel. It was a Willet bourbon barrel. And so I kept my blog up going. And some guys from a website called LouisvilleBeer.com hit me up and said, hey, would you like to write for us? And so I started writing for them. And then we started doing Louisville Craft Beer Week. So working, putting on a whole week here in Louisville. And through those connections, I got to be friends with all the brewers, all the beer nerds and everything like that. And the Kentucky Guild of Brewers started. So basically an organization to work for the laws and promotion of Kentucky craft beer. And they needed an executive director. So a couple people nominated me just because I know everyone and their brother. And so I did that for 3 years pro bono. Didn't get paid and just loved it. I flew me out to DC, worked in legislature, passed some huge laws that are still beneficial today for Kentucky beer. And it came to the time of, I wrote a grant for it to be full-time in 2016 and decided I was going to step away because I didn't want to work for anyone anymore. I wanted to be my own boss. And I kind of had made all those connections. I mean, I got beer friends all across the United States. And I didn't want to honestly be in a brewery 24/7. I like beer, and I didn't want to be 300 pounds. So that's kind of how it is. So I'm still a nerd. I still, on my vacations, my wife hates it. We stop at, I don't know how many breweries. But yeah, it's a bad habit, but I've made some of the best friends in the world through that. We go on vacations together. We talk every day. So it's great.
Well, I mean, that's what all this is about is a cool community. And I mean, did you ever think that this would kind of be how things would go? You'd work in beer and then working in woodworking. I mean, you were, like you said, you were a teacher and all of that. And then lo and behold, things change.
No, never. And there's many times I think about it because I'll just be walking and I'll be like, man, how am I doing this? What? Well, I'll tell you, it's every time I pay my student loan payment and I think about what I can't believe I got here because I'm paying for all these degrees because I was writing my dissertation on my PhD. And I was just like, I told myself, I was like, you give yourself 5 days. Within 5 days of this writing, if you hate it, you can quit. So within, like on the third day I was writing, I was like, screw this. I went fishing. It was like, I quit my dissertation in the middle of it, quit the whole PhD program. I was like, I didn't want to be in academia. I had a lot of negative stuff happen. And I was just like, that's not for me. And it's, people ask me if I regret that it's not Dr. King. I'm like, I don't care. I'd never use that. I mean, half the people half of my students never use their bachelor's degree anyways. But yeah, it is crazy. I wonder if like the bottom fell out and, things weren't selling, what I would do, or like, if my body breaks down because I'm on my second knee surgery in the past 6 months, what I would do. And I honestly have no idea whatsoever. So it's good. It's fun while it's lasting. And I kind of keep my head down, nose the grindstone, and just do my work, man.
Well, and it's really cool work. And, you mentioned the Thomas Woodworking that has been on the podcast previously. I always enjoyed asking them this question. What's it like using old bourbon barrels and wine barrels? Because as they said, one would think it would be cool, but really it's kind of nasty and disgusting.
It's very dirty. I look like a coal miner half the time. Like when customers come and pick up their items, they just look at me like how they're just like, what the heck? Because just covered in head to toe. And I like to wear short running shorts when I work. So it's just dirt everywhere. I mean, I'll go to coffee shops or restaurants like during lunch and people just look at me like so weird, like I'm a homeless person in there, just because it is such dirty work. I mean, it feels constantly wearing masks. I was wearing masks for masks were cool because you're getting stuff up your nose and everything like that. It's really dirty. I mean, my shop is in my house, and like I look on Instagram and see all these woodworking influencers and how pretty and nice their shops are. And I call BS because you're not really doing work. If you're not covered in dust and dirt and work, if you're taking 2 hours a day to clean your shop, you're not really doing woodworking. It's my hot take.
And I was gonna say, I mean, I'm guessing you're not exactly allowed to step foot in the house just right away from the shop. Or does the wife?
Do. I'm in
So
trouble.
the wife allows it.
I clean up after myself. So like, yeah, there's 2 rooms down our basement. There's many times to where like you can tell where I've been in the afternoon because there's a trail of sawdust. Oh, went to the refrigerator. Oh, went to sat down on the computer, and it drives her crazy. And so I try to vacuum a lot as much as I can. But yeah, that's the thing too. It's a sticky wicket of, there were times when I thought about getting a shop and getting bigger. And that, if I would have done that during COVID, I'd been screwed because I'd been paying overhead. And it's, people get on me all the time about, hey, get a shop and grow bigger. And I'm like, why? I can work from home. I can have lunch with my dogs every day. I don't have to, if I forget to do something like put a coat of polyurethane, I don't have to get in my truck and drive somewhere. I just walk downstairs and not have to deal about it. So I got a pretty good thing going. I got one guy who helps me out. He's one of my best friends. He does a lot. He's a retired U.S. Marshal. He does a lot of my scroll saw work. And like, if I go pick up stuff, we just drive together. He's got nothing else to do. So Izzy's, I wouldn't be successful or have a business if it wasn't for my buddy Izzy. So
I was gonna say it takes a team, and I find it interesting too because I mentioned this at the beginning. You're a man of many hobbies. You've got craft beer, woodworking. What other hobbies? Because I think on the Instagram I see bass fishing.
Yeah,
a couple other things.
yeah. So I've had to I don't golf anymore. I do a lot of fishing, so I fish a lot of tournaments. That's the best thing about being your own boss is I can take the boat out on a Tuesday, camp out on a Monday night. No one's out there. So do a lot of fishing, do a lot of backcountry camping and backcountry hiking. So because of the knee surgery I was talking about, I can't do it this year. You see a picture of Yellowstone behind me. I think we did 80 miles last summer, did it in 4 days. So knocked it out. We're pretty fast hikers. So love to visit the national parks and just get outdoors. That's one thing, my parents instilled as me as a kid was going out fishing and being out in the outdoors and camping. Also because of my surgeries with my knee, I couldn't trail run. So I got super into foraging mushrooms. So that's like my secret little hobby that I'll go out on Sundays and go in the woods and find chanterelles, chicken in the woods and hen of the woods, and give them to local chefs or friends that are big into them. So it's my mom mushrooms when I was a kid, and I couldn't go because I was really allergic to poison ivy, but I've kind of figured out what it looks like. So that's
what to avoid.
I know what to avoid. I mean, that's as many hobbies as my life allows. That's what I try to do. But yeah, it's I do when I can run, I do a lot of long distance running, and I don't do races anymore. But that was a big part of my life, which I kind of miss right now. So looking forward to get back to that hopefully soon.
Well, I was gonna say that running and hiking helps balance out the beer drinking.
Yeah. And after not running for a year, I can definitely tell and see it. So I'm trying to get back. I can do biking, but I hate biking because I don't have a really great bike. So you'll see all these 80-year-old blue hairs just whiz by me. I got sweat pouring down my face, grinding it out. But yeah, it is. I need to get back in shape if that happens. So.
Well, I love, just getting to learn about everything that you do. I mean, besides the hobbies, all that good stuff. I mean, do you go out to events and stuff with Drunkwood, or is it pretty much all online and that's kind of how you prefer it?
No, I don't do shows anymore. I think the last time I did a show was maybe 2017. I did them when I got started just to get my name out there. But that goes back to, having, if you're working during the week, and basically you're working on the weekends too as well if you do all those shows. And then I'll be honest, I don't have a good poker face. So if someone's talking to me at a show and I don't care what they're saying, my face is going to show it. And I don't do well with people trying to bargain or barter with me. I'll politely say a few kind words that you can't say on this podcast and tell them where to go. So no, I don't do shows anymore, mainly because I honestly ship everything or have people do pickups. I don't have time to create an inventory. And then if I create the items, and they don't sell, then they're sitting at my house. And since I work from my house, it's super small. So no, I used to, and people ask me all the time to do it. And I have friends who do it. I don't have the patience, and I didn't start this business to go sit in the sun for 8 hours on a Saturday.
That'd be better spent on a lake.
Yeah. It'd be better spent on a lake, whereas my business runs itself to where I can do the same thing online and my phone starts blinging up. You got a sale, and you don't have to deal with ketchup from a corn dog all over your pants. So
now for those that want to find out, and we're, whether that's submit a custom order or, take a look at what you've got, is the Etsy page the best, or social media, or what's best?
So Etsy is where you can find probably 80 of my most popular items. So you can go on Etsy. If you're local to Louisville, you can use code Louisville Pickup in all caps to pick things up. One thing I highly encourage, if anyone reads or listens to this podcast, shoot me a message first about shipping, because Etsy only uses like the postal service, and I make super big pieces that I ship via FedEx. So shipping can be atrocious. But if you want to see like common pieces, go on Etsy. If you want to see like the rare one-off stuff, you can go on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. If you'd like to place an order, the easiest thing to do is shoot me an email. And it's Drunkwood, INKY. So it looks like drunkwoodinky@gmail.com. That's the easiest thing to do. I try to push, because I get communications via Instagram, Facebook. I try to push everything in email, so it's all in one place. So yeah, but yeah, I ship all across the United States and Canada and Great Britain and Russia. Yeah, I just did a Russia one. Yeah. So it can be expensive to ship though. So that's the worst part is.
So you're international now. You're an international star with the international workshop.
Yeah, I guess that's what my buddies call it, Drunkwood International LLC. So I think that's what I'm listed on Google. Like if you Google it, like my house, that's what it's listed as. So.
Well, as we wrap up, John, I mean, what do you have any other fun projects that are coming out in 2022, or is it just more of having fun and having a beer?
Yeah. So basically from now until December, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week. It's because once the holidays pick up, you're grinding. So I don't have any shows. I'll do some sales. I don't have any, because my knee surgery, I couldn't plan really any trips because I didn't know what it would be like. I just came back I was in Buffalo for a fishing trip for 3 days. So that was kind of nice before my surgery. But no, I kind of don't plan on anything. I do everything kind of the spur of the moment, because like if there's a lull in my business, we'll go do camping things. But no, I don't have any big trips or anything planned. We're trying to go to Europe next year. So we'll see how taxes play out this year. So, but no, nothing big, just nothing big planned.
Well, it still sounds like you got a lot of fun things on the horizons, a lot of fun projects that you're working on. And like I said, check them out, Drunkwood. John, this was a blast, and we'll have to grab a beer sometime.
Yeah, anytime you're in. And I'm typically sometimes in Lexington. My friends own Ethereal and Country Boy, and West Six. So I go there and visit them on occasion when I get into town.
So absolutely. We'll have to make a plan.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.